Okay.
This is not
Oh.
knocked down.
Uh-oh. Okay. As Rob's figuring out our tech for the this setup is for the online people, and people who might be, if you are bored on Friday and you want to watch it again, you can see it through the club's YouTube channel. So welcome everyone to the March 2025 Hamilton Naturalist Club meeting. I'm Jen Baker, General Manager with the club. Really happy to see so many folks here today because I gotta say it was tempting to do like beer on the patio. So I'm really happy that you still came here and that you're saving the beer on the patio maybe for Friday. And so tonight we have lots of really exciting things to talk about, and we have a great speaker. So, remember that the next time you think, okay, I'll do this and then I'll do beer on the patio the next night. So our speaker tonight is John Hanna, who's going to talk about how important it is and probably how gratifying it is to expose folks to nature and to get that love of nature. But first, I am super excited. So you've seen some of them in the wood duck. So Glenn Meldrum, the guy who built had the massive barn swallow box built in Johnson 2 Park, he is getting the Eco Project Award. And part of it is the man is just beginning, like he's just beginning. And then we have our own Charlie Briggs, who a lot of you know. He's volunteer director on our board. He's getting the Batty Blashill Award. And then we have Martha Howitt, who's here today, who is getting an award of merit. So we're very proud of everybody and wanted to let you guys know because, well, okay. Because we're hoping that you'll come to the party on April 4th when they're center stage to get their awards. There are other awards too. I just don't know if everybody knows about their awards, but there are other awards too, and some really cool things that kind of represent environment and conservation in our community. So it's 6 to 9 at MAC in a really lovely hall, like not in a MAC from the 60s. It's in a really lovely hall. And there are hors d'oeuvres and cash bar, and it's a really nice event and a really good way to celebrate people, and people from like young to a bit older, so a good age range and a really neat range of projects. So go to eoyawards.com and you can learn more about the event. And then I'm going to invite Jackson up to talk about our new sanctuary director.
It's not that kind of meeting. Goodness. That wasn't for me. Okay, great. So hi, that was for Tony. So that you can expect that here, sir. So yes, I'm Jackson Udecki. I'm the vice president on the board of directors with the Naturalist Club, and we're excited because we have a new member on our team, and it's Tony Rockingham. So put your hands together for Tony. So, goodness, Rob, I'm sorry, that's your camera. So we have a long-standing sanctuary committee as part of the Naturalist Club. We've got 11 nature sanctuaries spread around the region, and it takes a whole team. Rob, I broke your camera. It takes a whole team of people to oversee those sanctuaries, and it takes a leader to oversee the team of people. And Tony has joined the HNC just a few years ago and will be joining us on the board and helping everything that goes on with our sanctuaries. So we're excited to have you, so you can put a face to the name and to the position. This October will be our AGM, and we currently have 2 openings right now, and so this goes to anybody online, but also anybody in the room, that we have an opening for a fundraising director, as well as program director. The program director is someone who brings in speakers for all of these meetings that you all come to or that you're attending online. So if you have an interest in either of those, or if you want to feel like you want to contribute to the cause, you can join us on the board or apply, talk to any of us. But on the website, hamiltonnature.org is where you can find a lot of that information. So positions available, yes. Welcoming Tony. And actually his wife, Pam, is giving out these Canadian flags. So you can see Pam for that. So we can walk around representing Canada. So thank you again, Tony. Jen, back to you. But one more round of applause for Tony.
Okay, and now Kevin is here. Okay, Kevin is going to talk about something that he didn't trust me to talk about properly. So,
I don't know if many of you heard that before our Prime Minister, or the last Prime Minister, prorogued Parliament, the Liberals announced that they were going to extend people's ability to claim donation receipts because of the mail strike. Well, the CRA has decided they're going to pretend that that's law, even though it didn't become law. So then we got a couple questions about, well, I made a donation in February, what do I get to do? So Claire, our membership director, has figured out how to do it. What we're going to do is cut off donation receipts for January and February and issue them. So then it's your choice, whether you want to claim it for last year or whether you want to wait and claim it in 2025 like you normally would. So then when it comes to the end of the year, I'm sure we're going to get all kinds of questions because you're all going to forget that you got the first 2 months, and then you're going to ask us next February what happened to this February. So Claire's going to issue those in the next couple of weeks, right? We've just passed the end of February. And it's totally up to your choice because it doesn't change how we record your donation. We still record it as January or February. So that's it. I just wanted you to know why you might be getting an email on something that's a surprise. Thanks, Jen.
and then so that's the guy, treasurer at hamiltonnature.org next February, when you're wondering. Okay, so a couple of upcoming events. So next Wednesday, in the room over there is our volunteer orientation. It's a great opportunity to learn about all the different ways to volunteer with the club. I mean, you name it, we're going to have something for you. And this is a really good way to talk to folks who are doing the work. You can meet Tony and the rest of the sanctuary committee and find out how great our sanctuaries are. Bruce McKenzie and Grimsby Wetlands, Falcon Watch, like things that I forget about. But they're all going to be there and they can answer your questions next Wednesday. So I encourage you to come out and join us for that event. And details are on the website. We also have some upcoming open houses for the Natural Areas Inventory. You guys heard Kasia speak a few months ago, and the Biodiversity Action Plan. So if you're kind of wondering, hey, I haven't heard anything, what's going on with those? These are the events to check out. There's a couple in person. Of course, you can't go to the 19th because you'll be here for the volunteer orientation, but there's still a couple of other events that you can come to. And that information, if it's on the calendar, you can just contact me and I can provide the details. And then first weekend in April is your nature weekend. So we have Environmentalist of the Year on the Friday and we have Trivia Night on the Saturday. Trivia Night's super fun. It's like pub trivia. So bring some friends or meet friends. It's a pretty friendly crowd. You can bring your own food, you can bring your own snacks. I have a license, like I have beer and wine for sale. Yeah, so really fun. So I encourage you to come out to that. It's pretty popular. And test what you know or don't know about different topics, but probably somebody at your table will know stuff. And Jackson already talked about the board opportunities, and this is a kind of, we're going to say it every month. So articles for the Wood Dock. If you have stories to tell, Carolyn and Helen would love to hear them. So, feel free to contact the Wood Dock editors with your stories. And if you have somewhere that you like to go that you want to share, Peter wants to hear from you about field events. And even if you think you don't know enough, don't worry, people will chime in. Whether you know lots or not, people will still chime in. So it's really fun, like group-led outings are super fun. So yeah, if you just have somewhere that you're like, hey, I want to share this space with people, Peter's the guy to contact. Bird study group. Okay, so there's this great speaker that we might hear about another time who can't make it next month. So Rob is on the lookout for someone who can speak in April. In April. Oh, so not this one. Okay, this one is still happening. Ignore that. So come next week for this speaker. The April speaker for Bird Study Group, Rob needs somebody. So if you know something about birds and you like talking to people and sharing stories, contact Rob. And he will really appreciate it. And then our next monthly meeting here is Pat Chow Fraser and the importance of small wetlands in recovery of at-risk species. This is kind of a timely topic because we have the new wetland that was just created at the Sheila Dundooley Nature Sanctuary and the big floodplain restoration project at the Amalo Nature Sanctuary. So that's going to be very timely, so come and check out to hear what Pat has to share. And now I'm going to invite Rosemary up. So Rosemary is with Dundas Turtle Watch, and come on up. And she is going to talk about what's going on with Dundas Turtle Watch and how you can get involved.
So I just press that to
Yeah.
bring them up.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, thank you for having me. I know everybody needs volunteers. It's not just Dundas Turtle Watch, it's the Falcon Watch, it's, everybody wants. But anyway, just in case you're interested in learning more about turtles, you have to be over 18, able to walk 2 to 3 hours once a week on trails. We provide training about turtles, and you can call either that number or the email address, which is on Dundas Turtle Watch's website, to join. So I know Peter Morley's here, who is also a member of Dundas Turtle Watch, and so is Glenn Meldrum. He actually got us 4 nesting piles built from Hydro One. So he's not only been building barn swallows, he's done a lot of work for a lot of people in this area, and a lot of creatures. So Dundas Turtle Watch, it starts off the season with a beautiful snapping turtle or a painted turtle laying their eggs. And they use their hind legs to dig and put the eggs in the soil. So that is what the year starts off with. Last year, we had 64 volunteers. We have 3 assigned routes in Dundas that we walk every day during nesting season, which is May to July, and in hatchling season from August to late September. Last year, we covered 48 turtle nests, so we protected 48 of them, but there were a lot more that released babies from those, from the area. We can also collect eggs if they're in areas where they are in risk of being predated more so or run over by traffic. They lay them at the side of the road, the turtles. They lay them anywhere that there's soft gravel or hard gravel. Sometimes we don't know how they dig because we can't dig in them, but they do. And so we have to apply to the Ministry of Natural Resources for a wildlife scientific collector's authorization to do this, which we do annually. And so last year, we incubated 612 turtle eggs, the snappers, and 18 painteds. And of those, we released those eggs that hatched was 451 of the snapping turtles and 13 of the painted, which is a pretty normal ratio of, so that was pretty good. It's been increasing every year. The more we get into this, the better we're getting, so that's really good. Some years you get fly-infested eggs, and some years you don't. It just depends on all sorts of circumstances for that to happen. So you can see those numbers are going up. In 2021, it was only 154, and now we're up to 464 that actually hatch and get turtles released from them. We also have an emergency phone number. If you've ever seen the signs down Coots Drive, there's a hotline number. You can call that 24/7. We have a wonderful person called Peter Hurl, who I think a lot of you here know. He often sends comments into the Hamilton Naturalist Club. And he answers all those calls, or most of them, unless he's on his motorcycle going out on a Saturday and then he hands the phone off to somebody else. But we usually get about 10 to 12 injured turtles a year that get sent to Peterborough. He gives them first aid. He does all sorts of taping of broken shells and all sorts of wonderful things. If it's a snapping turtle, he has a wonderful tube so it can't snap at him when he's trying to work on it. And he's just a very hands-on, practical person, but it has a wonderful, caring way of doing things. There are still turtle deaths on Coots Drive, I hate to say, even though we have fencing. That fencing doesn't go all the way along. It's only on RBG property and Hamilton Conservation Area property. The City of Hamilton, we've been persuading them for years and years that they need to come up with some fencing on their land, and so far we're not getting very far, but we keep trying. So there are gaps. So this is one turtle, it was a small snapper, and this one was due to a car accident on a wet night, and it was a pretty big snapper, it wasn't just a small one. But luckily Peter got called to it, he went, he rescued the eggs, and we did get those 18 eggs were retrieved, and because they're fresh eggs, right out of the turtle, they all incubated and were released. So hopefully, one of them might survive to replace that turtle. And that's usually the rate that happens. One adult turtle only ever produces to live one adult turtle. So it's a very low ratio that happens. We also instigated more turtle mitigation fencing on Hydro 1 property, and very kindly they actually installed it, their own people installed it, they bought it, they installed it with the RBG's help on how to do that properly. It's at the back of Hydro 1, unless you walk behind their substation building, you wouldn't know where it was. But one turtle came and laid right beside it, so we covered one nest, and I think it's still covered because it's a painted turtle. And if you ever watch the BBC Planet Frozen Earth, in the 2003 edition, they've just released watching painted turtles come out of those live hatchlings, come out of that nest in the wintertime after being frozen. It's quite spectacular to watch, so if anybody gets the chance. And then this is what it's all about. In the fall, all these little babies normally pop out of the nests. They're like little popcorn coming out of they just pop, pop. There can be up to 60 in a snapping turtle nest, and there's usually about 30 in a painted nest. Those are the two turtles that we get the most of around here in Dundas to help. So that makes it all worthwhile. So if you want to come and learn more about turtles, we have education sessions, and we keep everybody updated as much as we can. And we did release over 1,100 hatchlings, so those were the incubated hatchlings and the non-incubated ones, back into Coots Paradise this year. And if anybody watched the RBG presentation recently, I think, was it 3,000 or more they released this year? So between us, there's been a lot of turtles released into Coots Paradise. So keep your fingers crossed that we will keep the population up, and that's what we hope for. And thank you very much for your support. We really appreciate that.
Okay, so now we're going from turtles and all the great ways to volunteer in our community. Now I'm going to invite Liz up from Green Venture to talk about their new Rain Ready program with the city. And then it's just that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Liz Enriquez with Green Venture. And in the past, I've run the residential rebate program, and it was called Naturehood. Some of you might know about it, and we've rebranded it. The City of Hamilton approached Green Venture to expand it. This is a rebate program that previously offered $500 for low-impact development projects. So these are rain gardens, permeable surfaces, and rain tanks and rain harvesting. With the city backing it now and expanding it for 2025. The rebates are going to $1,500 for rain gardens and up to $5,000 for permeable driveways with a combination of various things. So you wouldn't be eligible for just one rain barrel, but if you do multiple rain barrels or a rain harvesting tank, then that would be eligible. So I will go through some of the details. Green Venture is a local not-for-profit. I think most of you, or hopefully most of you, are familiar. It's actually our 30th year anniversary this year. And we're most known for a lot of the deep paves, so ripping up concrete and replacing it with plants and gardens and a lot of community events. Also have been doing a lot of demonstration gardens. So in recent years, there's been 7 rain gardens put in along Barton Street and other places downtown to act as demonstration gardens to show people how rain gardens work. Our current team is me as the program manager, Jessica, Gail, who will be the project lead for the Rain Ready program, and then Alexia. Both Jessica and Alexia have horticulture and landscaping backgrounds, and so they will be going out to talk to homeowners to help them with their designs. So if somebody wants to design a rain garden, they apply. The rebate also covers landscaping fees and architectural drawings. It's just up to you if you want to use more money for plants and materials or use the bulk of the money to hire a professional. The program overview is to do outreach to homeowners and industry professionals and of course the public at large. We had a really successful industry night a few weeks ago, where over 40 landscape professionals came out to learn about low impact development projects, because the industry itself, many of them didn't know about rain gardens or how to install them, and so we're doing education to their side and also hosting workshops for industry professionals amongst themselves who know how to install permeable driveways. So we've had various permeable surface companies talk to landscapers, so we're getting them trained and them ready so that when the program officially launches, hopefully in April, there's going to be a group of knowledgeable professionals and contractors. And the goal of this project is to reduce stormwater runoff and address the large events overwhelming the city infrastructure that are leading to overflow events into the water. For anyone who doesn't know low impact development, the easiest way I explain it is just any kind of project that absorbs water on site. So I just give examples and that makes the most sense for people. So rain gardens, permeable driveways. But there's like a fancier definition if you're interested in learning. It also includes bioswales, soakaway pits, infiltration trenches, enhanced grass swales, perforated, a whole bunch of other things. But in the last 2 years that I've been doing the program, 98% of the projects are rain gardens, and we'll have like 2 or 3 permeable driveways just because the upfront cost is so much higher and less accessible. And then some of these other ones are just more engineered and for bigger properties. So we're expecting to see the most applications come in for rain gardens. But here are some examples. And there's lots of benefits. I think if you're here tonight, you know about the benefits of biodiversity, you know about stormwater management, yard beautification, and reducing water consumption. I think I'm preaching to the choir in this crowd. So I'll skip a lot of this because you're here because you care about the environment. So anyone who the eligibility is anyone in Hamilton. So that includes Dundas, Waterdown, Ancaster, Hamilton as a whole. We're all Hamilton. I grew up in Waterdown, so they might not say they're in Hamilton, but they are eligible too. And then there is an internal rubric. So the internal rubric will kind of kick in depending on how many people apply. Then they'll be seeing, okay, well, who is in a combined sewer area, who has high impermeable surface area, who has experienced flooding in the past, and that's how it'll be determined. But also like how articulate is your plan? So if someone applies and just kind of gives a half-made plan, they're gonna rank lower. But if you have a thought out plan, and there's going to be lots of resources available, including workshops, webinars. Green Venture, Jessica and Alexia have been putting on like 2 events a week. So that will help boost and enhance your application by attending some of those workshops to really understand how to build some of these features. So the steps are learn about the programs. This is step 1. Also attend some of the events. They're online. You can also watch a recording. You can request paper versions of it. Essentially, we want people to understand the different features before they apply, because we are expecting a high volume of applications, and so we want to provide you the resources to create your application. Then the application process is going to open. In the past, we've just used like a simple Google form, but now, you know, obviously with the city backing this project, and especially with the data breach, it has to be like a more robust application process. We can't just use our not-for-profit Google Forms, old school ways of applying. And so that's really kind of what the stage that we're at. Everything is done. It's just finalizing all these privacy things so that your information doesn't get stolen, which we never had an issue with, but you know, now we're in the next level. And then, applications will get reviewed. You get a coaching visit, and the coaching visit is Jessica or Alexia going out to your property, or you can do it virtually. And then the installation. So it can be installed by a landscaper, and the fees will also cover the landscaper if that's what you choose, or it could be DIY, and then again, you have more money for plants and soil and mulch. There's also other things that are covered. So for example, like a stump removal. We've had this in the past where people wanted to build, but they had a stump, and so up to a certain amount. So if you have like a large stump, up to $500 are going to be covered. So there's going to be a really long, extensive list for eligibility. You keep your receipts and then submit it and then get reimbursed. So this is a rebate program. There's upfront costs involved, and then you get reimbursed. If there's any financial barriers, we can accommodate. There's different ways on a case-by-case basis if you have financial barriers for that upfront cost. And then the rebate checks will be mailed to you because we can't do e-transfers. And that's it. So yeah, to learn more, go to greenventure.ca, Rain Reddy at Green Venture, or Jessica Gale at greenventure.ca, and Jessica will be answering any questions via email. Thank you. I can't, yeah.
Thanks, Liz. So I said that there was a lot happening tonight and a lot of cool things, and this is just like a sample of like the neat things that I get to hear about from our partners every day. And then we still get to hear John's story. So I'm gonna try to talk and switch laptops at the same time, and invite John up all at the same time. So we'll see how this goes. So yeah, I'm very excited that John is here to tell us some stories. John is a teacher extraordinaire at Hillfield, and so once you see and hear him speak, you'll be like, oh, I wish I had him in grade 6. And we have known, some of you guys know Liam Thorne. Liam was super excited to go into grade 6. I don't know if he was excited about any other grades, but he was super excited about grade 6 when he got to be in John's class. So John has done all kinds of great things, some of which we've been involved with just by circumstance at the school and on the campus at Hillfield, and just tremendous things over like a lifetime of engaging people with nature. So this is going to be really good, and I think you need to finish it from here. He also has so his mouse pointer on his screen is really big and lime green. And I wish I could, I don't even know how to do that, but that would be, okay. Okay, so join me in welcoming John, and it's all yours. Yeah.
This is the first time I've spoken at the Naturalist Club meeting officially, and I'm delighted. It's a great privilege to be here speaking to you tonight about work that I'm passionate about and that I'm equally passionate about sharing it. And I think the most important thing I can share is this idea of this sense of wonder and how incredibly important it is to share it, especially with kids. This is our daughter, Claire, gaining a sense of wonder as a young child. And her dream in life was to become an aquatic ecologist at RBG. And she fulfilled that dream as an intern last September when she joined the team there working on Coots Paradise. So it's an important thing to do because it has impacts throughout your life. And are we rocking? Yes, we are. So here she is. The sense of wonder, you can see it in the first picture on the left where she's got a chickadee in the hand and she's in awe, really. And then 20 years later, she's in university at Guelph working for Wild Ontario to manage and care for Apollo, who is a non-releasable injured American kestrel. And she had another mentor, and it was Kyle Warner, who's speaking next month. Next week. So Kyle's an incredible mentor for the program at Wild Ontario, and Claire came away with an incredible understanding of birds and their care and management, and it's really great to see. So my talk tonight is a little bit about what is this sense of wonder, what's the connection to the Naturalist Club history, why am I here doing this, and what might we do in the future going forward. We have a pretty incredible club. Just being here for the last hour, listening and thinking about the incredible things you do as a club, you're well set to take it to the next century. But I want to add a little project that I'll share with you tonight during my presentation. So this is from the 100th anniversary celebrations in 2019, and I got this from Ontario Nature that, and I'm not sure who wrote it. It seemed anonymous in the book, but I want to just take you back to 1919, the Hamilton Bird Protection Society. On a May evening, while world powers were settling issues in Europe, this is after World War I, not last weekend, a small group of bird lovers invited Hamiltonians to a meeting and perhaps to form a club to protect birds from boys, cats, and English sparrows. Membership in the Hamilton Bird Protection Society grew quickly. Many people loved birds and were concerned with declining bird numbers. Almost from the start, the ambitious group advocated for Coots Marsh as a bird sanctuary. Owen Merriman, the Society's first president, was a nationally recognized bird expert who wrote pamphlets for the federal government on feeding birds. And after a number of years, he, along with persistent members, were successful in having this precious wetland permanently preserved. And so began a long list of accomplishments for the Society that eventually grew into the Hamilton Naturalist Club, with a long list of accomplishments following that name. Then, as now, we understand that youth need the opportunity to get involved in nature projects. In the first year of the club, the Society started the Junior Audubon Birds Club that saw 273 clubs and 43 area schools with more than 8,000 members. And by 1938, almost 1,500 clubs had more than 26,000 student members. So I wonder what our impact might be on the next century. I think we're at a similar point, possibly, thinking of how we might re-engage students in mass numbers. We have almost 100,000 students in our Hamilton and Halton school boards combined. So we're preserving nature for the next generation, and we wonder what that might be on deck for us. Hands up if you've ever felt the wonders of nature tugging at your heartstrings. Everybody. How far did you venture outside on your own or with your gang of friends when you were just, say, 10 years old? So put your hand up if you were allowed to go to the end of your driveway at 10 years old. Okay. Keep your hand up if you went to the end of your street. Okay, 10 years old. Keep your hand up if you were able to go, say, a kilometer to the nearest woodlot or park on your own at 10. Okay. Hands up if you were able to go farther than that, say 5 kilometers, maybe down to the river to go fishing. Okay. And keep your hand up if you went more, say, than 10 kilometers at the age of 10. So very few of you left doing that. Yes. Well, it turns out that it's a problem. It's a problem of today. And I want to share with you a study by Dr. William Bird in the UK, near Sheffield, who was funded by the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, coincidentally. And it's an interesting study because it's a local area where 4 generations were queried about how far they were able to roam as children. So in 1919, George, at age 8, was allowed to go 10 kilometers down to the river fishing. And his son, Jack, in 1950, the small circle on the left there, the upper left, overlapped his grandfather's play space, but was quite somewhat limited to less than 2 kilometers where he could go to the nearest woods. And Jack's daughter, or the granddaughter, in 1979, she was allowed to go down the street to the pool, which was less than 1 kilometer away. And then in 2000s, the great-grandson, Ed, now 8 years old, he was allowed to go 275 meters to the end of his road without his parents. And I bring this up too because there's another issue. I think about my neighborhood where my kids grew up and where I grew up, and I look down the street and I walk down the street and I look around and I notice Norway maple and Japanese honeysuckle and ginkgos and Siberian elm and horse chestnuts from Europe and European birch and larch and linden. And these are the trees that our children are growing up and being familiar with, and they do not represent the native flora that we need them to learn about. And that's a big problem. And I noticed when I was on a trip to Ottawa with my grade 8s this year, and it was 2016, I think, and there were a couple students who did not know how to ride bikes. And that was the first time that occurred to me that students might not know how to ride a bike. I hadn't experienced that before. And today, that number is increasing, and access to nature is sharply declining. So we have 2 existential crises. One is that this climate change is impacting us, and school grounds here in Untarit, save for maybe a couple of ant colonies that might be on the edge of the blacktop there. We're not doing students a favor, really. But at least there's no electrical outlets outside. You have to wait till they go inside. And I share this image. It's harsh, but it represents the 3rd existential crisis that I am seeing with kids, and I'm sure you may or may not be aware of, but there's a massive mental health crisis occurring right now. And it's a lot worse than it was 17 years ago when Richard Louv brought us the last child in the woods concept that we grew up with, being the last children to be able to explore the woods freely and as we wanted. And that was 2008, and he identified a crisis. He called it nature deficit disorder. And some of the facts were that ADHD cases were up. Over 1/3 of children were overweight, and half of those were obese. And prescriptions for anxiety and depression were up 30%. I can tell you now, 15 years after that, if you think about our graduating grade 12s this June, there'll be about 10,000 grade 12s graduating in Hamilton Halton this June. and about 5,000 of them will be diagnosed with clinical depression. And that's a pretty serious mental health issue. And the solution, it turns out, is something we need to start doing yesterday, but because it has to do with trees. The best thing you can do is plant trees 20 years ago, but the next best thing is to plant them now. And I'll get to that. But the other thing that's cool is happening, and this is a map of Hamilton parks from the Hamilton website. And Richard Louv also suggested that a healthy dose of vitamin N would be the cure for a lot of the issues. And doctors in the US and in the West Coast and now in Hamilton are prescribing nature with Park X prescription. And it's a prescription worth filling. It does cause us to live longer. It increases our energy, it reduces our stress, and gives us a necessarily better mood and pain reduction, improved heart rate, or heart health, cardiovascular health. And the prescription is 2 hours a week in 20 to 30 minute doses at a time. And E.O. Wilson noted too that the issue is that students have to go to a park, or anybody who's got this prescription, and experience nature firsthand, and preferably at a critical age. It has the biggest impact. And that's something we want to make sure we do so that we have a generation of naturalists who will replace us in the next century. But it also turns out that the efficacy of vitamin N depends on the quality of nature. This is our son, Liam, experiencing nature firsthand, up close, and often as a child. In fact, he's holding on to the beech tree like the bear claws, scars that he saw in the bark there. This is a bit of a different kind of setting than most typical parks in Hamilton. We know recently from early NAI stories or visits to urban parks, I was just reading that on the website, that the quality of some natural areas around Hamilton now are declining severely and offer little to no ecological function. So we have to think about that as we think about our parks going forward. And part of the antidote to this is that we take our children out there and they're guided by a nurturing, caring adult who can create that connection for them. And that will give students a sense of place as well, and something to care for and know that that's where they belong and that they've had something to do with that. They've experienced the world around them. And it's helping them, and they're helping it. So how did I get here? Well, I had parents who took me camping up to Killbear Provincial Park, and I loved it. I didn't go to the beaches there, though. I went to the turtle ponds and fell in up to my neck often. Frog ponds, trying to catch frogs. My brother was an inspiration to me as a bird watcher. He shared the marvels of birds with me before I was aware of the magic of birds. And my scout leader gave me Roger Tory Peterson's first field guide to wildflowers, and I identified trout lily and bloodroot on my own at the age of 8 or 9 out at Mount Nemo, and it was amazing for me. But something incredible happened, and I've been thinking about this. At that age, I had a good friend, Peter McLaren, and I remember going over to Peter's house to visit, and his dad was home, and his dad was at his desk, and I knew his dad was an important cancer researcher at Henderson Hospital on Concession Street. But this day, Bert McLaren wasn't going through the journals of medicine and learning about cancer research. What he was doing was making lists of the birds he'd seen on the weekend, and he was pressing his flowers to make herbarium specimens. I had never seen a herbarium specimen before, and lo and behold, Bert McLaren was one of the founders of the Bruce Trail and an active bird member of the Naturalist Club too at the time. And tragically, Bert was killed on the Jollycut access route around just shortly after that visit to Pete's place. The trail, there's a side trail dedicated to him not far from our house and from where I work at Hillfield Strathallan College on the West Mountain. So I want to share a little bit about the privilege I've had over the last 22 years working at HSC. It's at the corner of Garth and Fennel next to Mohawk College. And it's a bit of a privileged place, yes. We're an independent school, but we're a not-for-profit school. And I must say how remarkable the college is and the things they're doing for the community and the things they're doing for kids in our community that go to this school. It is quite a privilege, and I'm glad to say that there some amazing things are happening there. Our head of college, Mark Ayat, just signed a bold pledge across and encouraging all of the other schools across Canada and the Canadian Association of Independent Schools to take on a pledge of climate action and bold nature protection. And it's pretty impressive. Our Director of Operations, Eleanor Kerr, has been a supporter of me. I've coached her through, and she supports the projects we do. And I have a growing army of faculty and staff members who entertain me with the project ideas that I have at the campus. So it's quite remarkable. But down here in the bottom left corner, or bottom right corner, we're not too far from the upper watershed of the Chedoke Creek. And it's just upstream from where we are here right now. And we have a long-standing relationship with Coots Paradise and Project Paradise in particular, and a long history dating back maybe 30 years or so with Barbara McKean and some of the students that went up down to Coots Paradise to learn about the wonders of it. And more recently, since 2016, I've been taking my grade 6 students down to Coots Paradise and the natural lands at RBG to learn about this most incredible biodiverse hotspot in Canada and connect it to our school through the watershed. And we're exposed to the biodiversity, but also to the expert staff, the terrestrial ecologists, the aquatic ecologists, the incredible interpretive staff, and also the flora and fauna that makes itself at home down there. Students are amazed. It's a 3-day immersive experience, and we do all kinds of things like extractigate invasive non-native buckthorn and honeysuckle with a device made in Canada called an extractigator. It's pretty cool, and we purchased a couple of these for our own school grounds because we have, it turns out, a lot of buckthorn and honeysuckle on our own school ground. And our gym classes in senior school take them out and exercise removing invasives on our campus. This is Joanne Fleet, who is a guest visitor to in the early mornings of our last day at RBG, and she's a gifted, brilliant, I would say an interpretive genius. And her inspiring words and have quite an impact on the students. And they often want to go back to school at HSC and figure out how we can support birds on our property. We've also hosted David Brewer, who's a distinguished ornithologist, brilliant man, part-time comedian, but great anecdotal stories about birds and things, and a mentor to Liam Thorne, who's in this picture under the tutelage of David. And they share the work with our students on the day, and it's pretty amazing for our students to see. This is Avery Simpson. She was in grade 6 when this picture was taken, releasing a white-breasted nuthatch that had been recently banded. And I remember Avery, she said she couldn't wait to work at RBG, and she wanted to be a terrestrial ecologist. Well, she graduated grade 12 last year, and she was glad to say that she was accepted at Acadia University just for that program. And she wants to volunteer this summer at RBG. And she volunteered at Green Venture, I think, last year as well. So you never know what kind of impact these kind of things can have. And it's always fascinating for me to see after our week at RBG in September, we come back to HSC and we say, how might we support biodiversity at the college? And the students spend the next couple of months trying to figure out what they might do. And in this case, it's proposing a large plantation of prairie plants, maybe flowers in some pattern. And what we do in December is we invite the staff back we invite them up to the college to share what we've been working on and to give advice to the students and to help them understand how they might shape their project maybe a little bit different way, or they might offer some expert advice. And it's always a great meal for them. They need it, and it's a wonderful time for our students to have the acknowledgement from the experts that their project is maybe something worthwhile and worth pursuing. So hundreds of projects later, we have low mow zones, we have pollinator pathways, we have outdoor classrooms, bird feeders. Liam set up a bird banding station at the college too, which was amazing for him to work under Rick Ludkin. And I give a shout out here to Dave Moffat, club member, who sort of opened the gate for us at HSC, at least in my mind, that you could do things like this. He planted the first Carolinian forest on our campus in an internal courtyard and said, "John, go for it, do it." So we had Paul O'Hara and Barb McKean from RBG. They came up to give us an idea of what we might do on campus in terms of trees and plants and large plantings like that, some advice and maybe some areas and what kind of soil we had, etc. And I have to give kudos to Jen Baker and Dana Boyder too, who I invited up on that first incredible planting day. I think we had almost 600 plants, trees and shrubs, and I had my class of grade 6s and the two of them, and we're looking at each other wondering, how are we going to do this? And well, we did it. We did it. And now we have a really nice growing grove of Ontario specimen trees representing our arboretum. It's quite something. And photographing those kids and walking through those experiences with them and sharing it with the college community did something pretty incredible. It's shaping a whole school approach to doing something really extraordinary now. So the back of our classrooms were windows looking outside, and now we're actually knocking out the windows, sledgehammer, taking out the bricks, taking out the window, and refitting with an access door at the back of the class directly outside to these green spaces. And we've done that 13 times now in our classrooms. That's pretty incredible. And what do you go out to? Well, once was maybe a mowed green space, but now it's in this case, an incredible garden curriculum that's been adopted by our pre-K to grade 4 students and teachers. They do everything through a gardening curriculum. And off in the corner there, behind the fenced area, we've got 2 chunks of space where buffalo sage and sweetgrass grow extremely well, and our smallest students spend most of their day out there. It's pretty amazing, because the door just leads them out to that patio. And we do things in big, bold spaces. This is a green roof, 1,000 square meter green roof that we put on our senior learning commons. And we have several thousand square meters of solar panel arrays. And this is my grade 6 student this year, Paige Howe, touring the grade 3 class up onto the roof to show them the solar panels, how they work, and what they're doing, powering 70% of our senior school needs every day. It's pretty amazing. And our school is proposing, well, we know we are, we're the most biodiverse school ground in Canada right now. Carbon negative by 2050. We're hoping to be carbon neutral by 2030. And it's pretty bold, but we hope to do it. We've got 1,000 square meters of tall grass prairie and 1,000 square meters of oak savanna to the left of that. I know straight ahead, that's a Norway maple. It's not going to be there for long. We're going to take it out. And I have to give acknowledgement to the World Wildlife Fund Canada for the Living Planet at Schools project. They funded us to get 1,600 tall grass prairie plants in the ground, with just about every one of our 1,300 students involved in that over the course of 2 or 3 days. That's pretty remarkable. And Kyanase growers provided a lot of the plants, and they didn't sell the plants because they can't do that. but they gifted the plants, and we gifted them some financial incentives for that. And they just said, plant with a good heart, and I think we do. This is our hairy beard tongue plot. It's 100 square meters. And on this day, 500 bumblebees were in this plot at once. And that's an estimation, but we're pretty certain it was about 500. It was pretty incredible. We're on Hamilton's pollinator pathway, and we're hosting all kinds of pollinators, and it's a beautiful thing. We've also got into seed collecting, and this is a video I captured during the pandemic of one of my colleagues. She's with her class and so excited to be collecting switchgrass with the students, pulling them off so easily. Some of them wore gloves and it just sticks to their gloves. And then she hands off to a student who's just so excited but says, well, it's not as many as some of my friends collected, but it's quite something to be able to do that. So we collect the seed, and Montessori students are really, really good and patient at separating the seed types and packaging them. We have a seed library that we started. And this is an interesting story. During the pandemic, it was 2020, just after Russia had invaded the Ukraine. And I had ordered some pumpkin seeds to grow the next spring with our students. And lo and behold, the seed library in Kharkiv was bombed. And the seeds arrived, and the package was packaged in Ukrainian on the cover. And I shared that with the students, and I said, hey, this might be the last Ukrainian giant pumpkins in the world. We've got them here. And they said, well, we need to plant them and grow them, and then we need to collect the seed when they grow so that we can keep the giant pumpkins going. So that's what we did. We planted them, we used a straw bale technique to grow them, and it was a marvelous experiment, and the pumpkins grew, and here the grade 7 students, the following fall, after they planted them in the spring, harvested the giant pumpkins, and we've got them in our seed library. So it's pretty amazing what you can do on a small 50-acre schoolyard when you let grade 6s loose on some ideas and give them some encouragement. Here we are working with the Bay Area Restoration Council partnership to plant a rain garden to support the work of Green Venture and the City of Hamilton and the Conservation Authority and, of course, Shit Oak Creek and eventually Cootes Paradise. It does rain, and we have storm sewers that are the former sub-watershed of Shit Oak Creek. We have old maps where you can see where it crosses our property, but it's no longer on the surface. It goes underground, and apparently John Terpstra tells me that HSC, we have our own waterfall from our storm sewers that flow in over the eastern edge of the Shit Oak Falls Gorge. So I've got to find that. We've got 3 1,000 square meter bioswales that are constructed in the center of our parking lots. And they're massive, and they work incredibly well. They've never overflowed. And I've been out there on the biggest, worst storms to watch and film it, and they're remarkable, and the amount of pollinators that come to it are stunning. We've been involved with the Classroom Mini Marsh program since its inception. We've had 25 classes this year at HSC that hosted Classroom Mini Marshes, and I heard from Chris McLaughlin. I asked him, I said, how many did you have this year? It was a big year. And he said, yeah, 452 classes this year, representing 11,000 students who had Classroom Mini Marshes in their classroom. And my grade 6s, after coming back from Cootes Paradise, you can imagine the number one project idea is how can we build a marsh at HSC, just like Cootes, so we can go canoe it there. Well, it's not easy. So what we did is made a box pond, and we dug it 3 feet into the ground, and these students had it in the classroom pre-assembled, and then they took it outside, dug the hole, and put it in below ground. We lined it with a massive wetland rubber liner, and we planted out with some of the wetland plants from the Classroom Mini Marsh project. And we have fish in the box pond now too that have been completely independently surviving for the last 6 years. They're the rosy darner that's doing really well. In fact, every spring, kids go out to look in the little window. You can see it in the background at the left there. They look in the window and look for the fish, and sure enough, they're still there every spring. It's quite amazing. And when one successful class raised box pond marsh works, well then other students in successive years, they want to do it too. And this year, we decided to keep the Classroom Mini Marsh plants at school, and one of our students built an aquatic nursery box, and we invited all of the classes who hosted those plants to come out to the nursery box, plant their wetland plants from their Classroom Mini Marsh into the box pond, and we keep them for a year to see how they grow, and they grow extremely well. And the next year, or the fall, after they've planted them, they've matted together, and we pull the mats out, saw them up, put them in the back of my pickup truck, and we drive down to Cootes Paradise and hand them over to Claire and the aquatic ecology crew, and volunteers as well at Cootes Paradise, continuing to this day to try and make Cootes Paradise what it could be or ought to be. And that is no small task. I know how hard they work, and they're managing invasives every day. They spend 90% of their time managing invasives. And it's same with terrestrial ecologists too. So this calls for some bold action, and I think my grade 6s 2 years ago proposed a project that I think is the one we can hang our hats on and say, hey, here's what we ought to do maybe going forward over the next 20 years to create a 100-year-old forest in a short time. And it's called the Miyawaki method for a playground mini forest. And they shared this idea with me, and okay, all right, what does it mean? What's going on? Who is this Miyawaki guy? Well, it's Dr. Miyawaki from Japan, and he studied this microforest process, and it works out. It's pretty amazing. And Green Venture has several of them already in Hamilton. I didn't know that. And we've now got 4 on our campus. And the first one was proposed by these 4 students, and it is pretty scripted. It's pretty specific what you have to do. And the first step is you choose the area and amend the soil. In this case, 6 to 8 inches of mulch that has nutrients in it added to it. Second step is select the plants. And we've chosen 36 species that represent late succession forest structure, including the overstory, the understory, and the canopy layer. And we introduce the students to each one of the trees one at a time. Here they are. Here's the 36 species. Here's their name. Here's their Latin name. Next year, we hope to find the indigenous names for those plants to introduce the kids to them. And then we had 10 of each plant or so about 360 plants in a 100-meter square plot. That's key. And then you go to town. The students do all the planting. And they want to plant 3 or 4 Miyawaki forests on that day, and they want to skip French and math class. And the phys ed teacher comes out and says, hey, they're working harder planting these trees than they do in my gym class. What's going on? It's a remarkable thing, and this is in partnership with Green Venture and Mohawk College students who came over to help us out. And it's a wonderful spot. And this is what it looks like at the end. It's about the size of half a tennis court. The trees are all about the same size. This is the first just after planting. It's densely mulched, and there's about 3 to 4 trees per square meter. And it grows really fast. It grows about 3 feet a year. And it gently shades, they gently shade each other, and biodiversity is remarkable. They do grow so quickly. This is another part of our campus where Jen Adams, my colleague, takes her pre-Ks out to visit their trees regularly and seasonally to say hello and connect with nature. And we're tapping our maple trees. We've got a couple of big maples, sugar maples, after the March break. And I read Paisley and the Talking Tree. It's a book written by a local author David Simpson, who's a kindergarten teacher, and it's my favorite experience of the year. But these kids they go out there and they develop a sense of inquiry and curiosity and bring it back to the classroom, and Jen guides them along. And we know that these spaces are making children happier, healthier, and smarter. And they're mitigating the impacts of climate change. They're taking in CO2. They're absorbing surface runoff. Their temperature in these forests is 10 degrees lower than it might be on the adjoining blacktop. They're remarkable. And they're not just mitigating climate change, they're also supporting biodiversity. This is the New England aster with a monarch butterfly on it. And as I swing around in behind it, it's right next to the playground, and there's kids in the background playing basketball, shooting hoops on the blacktop, and here's the Miyawaki forest and a monarch butterfly. And then this red fox is hunting underneath the aquatic nursery bed, and he catches a meadow vole. I stopped it there because it's quite real to life, but I don't think you could teach the interactions of living things in a grade 7 science course better than you could looking out the window of our quad onto this space, and know that the Miyawaki forest is having something to do with that, bringing that nature closer to students right out the back of their classroom window. This fox has been seen 3 times, and this was filmed by our security guard. And she shared the video with me, and as it walked away, it was limping in its back left foot. I said, "That's the same fox. It was hit by a car 3 years ago." And then a year ago, I saw it. It looked really rough a year ago. It was in the same area hunting, not successfully that time that I watched it anyway. But watching this video, the fox looks healthy and bushy-tailed, and it caught the meadow vole easily. And as it was walking away, it limped with that left foot. I said, "That's the same fox." It's remarkable. So what do you do after the next year when kids have planted the Miyawaki forest and moved on to grade 7? The next year of grade 6s, well, you introduce them to John Laird Farrar and his book of trees in Canada and how do you identify them. So what the students do, they go out, they go into the Miyawaki forest, and I give them a ribbon, a piece of flagging tape. They find one of the Miyawaki trees and they tie off their ribbon onto it, and then they decide, is it coniferous or deciduous? Is it opposite or alternate branching? And then they take a sample and they bring it back into the class. They go through Farrar's 12 categories of trees, and they figure out what it is, and they make a herbarium specimen. I think Bert would be proud. And then, lo and behold, they look at each other's specimens, they peer review each other's identification, and then they do an inventory of what's in the Miyawaki forest, and they find out that there's 36 species, and representing about 360 individual plants, trees. It's quite an amazing thing. Our grade 8 students are doing a French version of our trees. They've mapped the important trees on our campus and made a QR code with the identification, English, Latin, French, and indigenous language. I think it's Anishinaabe-Moan, I think. I'm not 100% sure. Our grade 11s are making a comprehensive guide to trees of our campus, and it's amazing. Where are we going from here? Well, I give kudos to Charlie Briggs, who sourced 3,680 acorns, it turns out, counted by one of our grade 6s, and separated, floated, and they're in good shape. And this is Hakandu on the left with a smiling face and the tie on. He wanted to take our littlest students out and plant all of those acorns because their fingers are just the right depth for putting into the raised garden beds. We got them all planted. We've covered them with a mesh, covered them with ice and snow. Nature did that. And we hope this spring to open it up and have 4,000 germinated red oaks that we can then pot up, give to all of the students in our our school, and they can take them home and plant the beginnings of Miyawaki forests on their front lawns. That's the goal. And a shout out here, this is another grade 6 student, this is Gabriel, who, after being at RBG and learning about birds, wanted to have a better bird box. So I said, you got to connect with Bruce McKenzie, because I think George Croker's box design at McMaster Forest might be a good design for you. So he did, and Bruce sent back the plans, and Gabriel went to our carpenter and said, hey, I want to make this. 2 days later, Gabriel came back proudly with his bird box, complete with the mudroom at the front, and he couldn't wait to get it up at the edge of our first Miyawaki forest. His pride, you can see it in his face, the sense of wonder, anticipation, lasted about 2 hours because he came plowing into my science class. Mr. Hanna, there's birds checking out my bird box. Come and see, what are they? And this is 2 hours after he put the bird box up. And it turns out it was a pair of chickadees. And within 3 days, they'd built a nest on the other side of the knee wall, and within 3 weeks, they'd hatched 4 chicks and were on the verge of fledging them. And you can only imagine how news travels and what you can expect the rest of the students to want to do as well. So I think in terms of reciprocity and giving back to nature, I think we're doing a pretty good job, and I think kids are definitely gaining a sense of wonder. But it wouldn't be complete without thinking and giving them the sense of connection to Indigenous ways of knowing too. This is Raven, who visits our school often, and she's introducing them to the medicine wheel teaching. And the first quadrant is planting the seed, or lighting the fire is the beginning, and I think we're doing that. And she shared with us the 4 medicine plants, 2 of which, the Mishkodawashk and Wingashk, we grow on campus outside the Montessori classroom. It's pretty impressive. And Delilah is our youngest Indigenous Students and Allies Association member at our school, and she does smudging ceremonies using plants from our school, and she does those smudging ceremonies with her peers often, and she shares it. She also takes her friends down to the kindergarten class or grade, whoever wants to visit with her that time, and they'll go out with scissors and cut Sky Woman's hair, which is the sweetgrass, and she'll put it in, she'll count out the strands, 3 strands of 7 each to braid together, and they'll do that with the students, sharing that connection, making that connection to the ground and to the earth and to place and to each other in an amazing thing. You can imagine when Delilah brought me a braid of sweetgrass and handed it to me and said, Mr. Hanna, here's our first braid of sweetgrass. I want you to have it. Thanks so much for all you do. It's choking me up. It was pretty awesome. But I wanted to also mention this quote from Rick Hill, Six Nations elder. And I think, as you saw at the beginning of the club meeting tonight, the acknowledgement to the Indigenous people who were here before us, and I think how important it is for us to use Etuapmumk, two-eyed seeing, and think about things in this way. And I think the Miyawaki forest might do this for us. If you read his quote, maybe you don't know the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant. It was the first treaty between Indigenous people and the land. And then it was the treaty between Indigenous people long before the European treaties. This was the first treaty. But nature says, here's the great dish, and inside the dish are all the plants, the animals, the birds, the fish, the bushes, the trees, everything you need to be healthy and therefore happy. The 3 basic rules are: only take what you need. Second, you always leave something in the dish for everybody else, including the dish. And third, you keep the dish clean. That was the treaty between us and nature, and then the treaty between us and everybody else. And that's the Quahog belt with the Dish with One Spoon insignia in the middle. And Delilah was using a quahog for her smudging ceremony in the earlier picture. So to me, I think the Miyawaki method for playground mini forests might be the version of the classroom mini marsh in a real easy, tangible way that we could get behind and support every school ground and every grade 6 class in the city could adopt this and use it. And it'd be something we could give the next generation of nature lovers. Thank you. I have one more slide though, sorry.
Sorry.
Rachel Carson wrote, if I had influence with the good fairy who is supposed to preside over the christening of all children, I should ask that her gift to each child in the world be a sense of wonder so indestructible that it would last through life as an unfailing antidote against the boredom and disenchantments of later years. And I want to take a second just to acknowledge Barbara McKean, my wife, who to me has been an incredible mentor and who has given me a sense of wonder. And I think you might not know this, but over her career, I think she has touched the lives of more children than all of us combined with her spoken word, but also her written word, and the amount of children's lives that she has touched, including our own children's lives. She's pretty incredible. She's just recently retired from Royal Botanical Gardens as the education director there. And I just wanted to acknowledge that I think Rachel Carson would agree with me that she is that fairy godmother who's presided over a lot of kids and given them the gift of a sense of wonder like no other. I don't know if there are any questions.
Yeah, are
I
there
should
any
have.
questions?
Sure.
Want to go back to grade
I-
6?
I teach kids of all ages. Yes. Thanks. Yep.
Are the Hillfield Scott Allen grounds available for public?
They are. They are. And we ask that you, if you drive in through the Fennel entrance, you can park anywhere there and come into the Holton building and just register and you get and then you can, we can probably set you up with somebody to give you a guided tour as well.
So, but during weekend hours as well, or?
Weekends you probably wouldn't find someone who could guide you.
Just to wander around?
Yeah. We ask that you, that we've got no trespassing signs because we've had other issues. It doesn't count with naturals, right? Or seed collectors or anyone who wants to plant an oak here or there or something like that, for sure. Yeah, get a hold of me at the college and I'd love to give you a tour. I could do that for you, yeah.
I had to drop my kids off at a program at the school, and I saw the bioswales, and I stood there for so long talking to other parents in awe of the plants that were in there and talking with the pollinators. People were just, who's this crazy guy? Look at how many bees are in there right now.
Yeah.
My question though, so good job on that, thank you. My question is that thing you had other schools sign, 230.
The pledge.
The pledge. Can you speak
Yeah.
more to what that was? And
Sure.
how it's supposed to get involved with it?
Yeah. It's called the doornumber1.org is the organization run by Michelle Andrews. And what she did is, she's a former Canadian Association of Independent Schools administrator, I believe, and she partnered with leaders or principals or heads of college across the Canadian Association of Independent Schools and suggested that maybe we might develop a framework for bold climate action. So they started a project called Climate Action Accelerator Program, CAP. And we were in the first cohort. There were 25 schools across the country that joined the CAP program. to learn from each other and work with experts to try and develop a framework for how we might become a carbon neutral school by 2030. As a school, that's not an easy thing to do. So we shared resources and ideas and inspiration, and we're fourth year now, and it's expanded to over 35 schools, including some in the U.S. It's called the Climate Action Accelerator Program, and it's a framework for how you might build a school community. It's a whole school approach to it. It's not just champion teachers and a groundskeeper. It's everybody. In the Canadian Association of Independent Schools, often schools have their own. We're not-for-profit, and everybody works for the school. Our bus drivers, our catering staff, security guards, maintenance guys, the electricians, the plumbers, the cleaners, everybody works for HSC. So we're all in it together, and we have a comprehensive plan of how we might address climate change actions to get us to net zero by 2030, including the development of a learning landscape. The outdoor part is just as important. So that's what that is.
That program, is that only for the independent schools or public schools also?
Public schools can get involved too. Yep. And it would be maybe from a district level too that might be able to get involved. It's a bit harder maybe for a public school. You might have to do it through a principal or an active, but I would recommend the school board consider it too. Great.
Any other questions? No? Okay, thanks again. Yes, a big thanks to Barb and John. And because I know I've been fortunate, so I wasn't a kid when we lived here, but I know as an adult I've learned from both of them. So I'm very fortunate to be some of the ones who have learned from being able to just hang out with both of them. So we're lucky to have them, and I think tonight really shows that if you let kids just experience something and then almost like back off and let them just run with it, amazing things can happen. And that's what it's harder in public schools for a whole bunch of reasons. But we're really fortunate to have all of the work that John's done at Hillfield, because we can point to that and say, maybe you don't have 50 acres, but look how like everything that's done there is in like smaller chunks. So we want you to look at that chunk. Want you to look at that Miyawaki forest. We want you to look at that chunk of like prairie habitat. And every school can do that if you combine like Green Ventures, deep paving, and our planting. So challenge accepted, and we will see what we can do, like one school at a time, and it really needs to be a whole school effort. So challenge to you guys, because teachers always like to leave us with homework, right? So homework for all of us is, if you are in a school, or your kids are in a school, or grandkids are in a school, or you're associated with a school to some degree, then contact us, contact me, and let's see what we can get going with somebody who's like kind of already in a school, and let's see what we can do. So there's our challenge, and there's our homework. And thank you again very much, everybody, for coming out. I think both, because you're in this now too, Barb, so I think Barb and John will both be around for a bit after. And Tony is here if you wanted to introduce yourself to Tony. And Rosemary is still here if you wanted to know more about Turtle Watch. So thanks again. Oh, and there's still cookies. So a big thanks to Catherine and Ellen for the cookies again tonight. And thank you for coming out. Okay, thanks everybody.